Good morning. In today's short video, I have sad, exceptional breaking news to give, and this concerns the recently held 19th round of military talks on the border issue between India and China after a gap of 4 months. Unlike the previous 18 rounds, which were held over one day, and they all concerned about a possible give and take, they concerned about India trying to, through negotiations, persuade China to go back, to disengage, to de-escalate and to de-induct the forces and go back to the status quo as it existed in April 2020. This particular round, the 19th round, was held over 2 days. It was actually in two parts. The first part was over 2 days, August 13th and 14th, and the second part was on August 18th. And this round had nothing to do with persuading China to go back to the status quo. It was about implementing an agreement which both sides had agreed 3 years back, and which I call compromise on the core issues concerning India's sovereignty. Because I am referring to the 10th September 2020 joint statement which was signed in Moscow between the foreign ministers of India and China, Jai Shankar, and then Foreign Minister Wang Yi of China. Anybody who sees this document at first glance is just 5 points. You immediately realize that this is tilted heavily in favor of China, something that no Indian government would want to sign after the aggression that the PLA did in April of 2020. So let me revisit this joint statement as to what it says and what it does not say. So there is no mention in the joint statement of any de-escalation of de-induction. When you don't mention that, that means both sides have agreed it will not happen. Next, it talks of disengagement, but it does not specify that the disengagement should happen at these points. Specifically, as everybody, all the analysts and everybody wants to know when the disengagement will happen at Depsang and Demchok, well, it does not talk about it. So disengagement obviously means on Chinese terms. Next, there is no mention of line of actual control. There is only mention of border areas. And border areas, as we know, at all the other points, 4 points where the disengagement has happened, their buffer zones have been created, and all the buffer zones are inside Indian territory, because the PLA has not ceded even an inch of ground on its side. So that is now the new border areas. And the fifth point of the statement, if I may just read out, it is this: that the two ministers agreed that as the situation eases, the two sides should expedite work to conclude new confidence building measures to maintain and enforce peace and tranquility in the border areas. So, coming back to the 19th round, on 13th and 14th, it was at the level of lieutenant generals, which is 3-star, that the two sides decided as to what sort of CBMs are to be done. Why I say this is because there is news already come in the Times of India newspaper that on 18th of August at 2 points, which is Trishul, officers of the two side of Major General rank, which is 2-star, they worked new CBMs which concern air violation by drones, which concerned about troop levels that need to be kept close to the line of actual control after the disengagement or whatever buffer zones have been created, what should be the patrolling limits in the buffer zones, and whenever patrolling is done by each side, then the other should be informed. So this is what has been reported. Now, the point is, when did this breakthrough happen? When did the two sides agree to do this? It is very obvious that this happened in Johannesburg on the 24th of July, when India's National Security Advisor met with the Chinese top diplomat Wang Yi at the BRICS Summit, at the BRICS meeting. So that is where the breakthrough happens. If you see the press release of the MEA, it clearly said that both sides want normalcy in the relations and they want peace and tranquility in the border areas. So it happened at that time, and that is how it was done. Now the question is, why is it that after 3 years that India suddenly has decided that look, we need peace on the border and we are happy to accept the terms of the Chinese? One can only guess two things, because there is a history to this which I'll just give. One, that as far as the Modi government is concerned, on earlier occasions also, when it has come to the crunch, they are quite happy to not go to war even on core issues. I'll just come to that a little later. And the second, of course, is the 2024 elections coming around the corner. Certainly the government wants peace on the border, at least on the border with China. And if I may just add the third one as well, hope is that perhaps at the BRICS Summit, which starts on Monday, August 21st, and both Xi Jinping and Modi will be there, they could have a little more than just exchange of pleasantries to make sure that Xi Jinping perhaps also comes for the G20, which has been made into a very big thing by the Modi government, to Delhi, where something like 35 heads of state are expected, all the G7 nations. So if Xi Jinping also comes there, it would be a good thing. Now when I say comes to the crunch, and when I say there is a bit of a history to that, what am I referring to? I am referring to the 15th June Galwan killings. Please recall, not a shot was fired there at that time, and yet within 4 days the Prime Minister himself said that nobody has come in our territory, nobody is sitting on our territory. He said this. And take another instance of night of August 29-30, when the Indian Army, perhaps without the knowledge of the government, they went and occupied tactical heights south of Pangang So, which is the Kailash range, which falls on Indian side of the LAC. And the Chinese objected to that because sitting on those heights, the Indian side could oversee their cantonment. And the Indian government ordered the Indian Army to come back from there, to come down, despite the sacrifice of 2 soldiers made in that bold, brave tactical operation there. So the point I am making is very simple. What has happened at the end of the 19th round is that India has lost what has been reported something like 2000 square kilometer of Indian territory, which the Indian soldiers had been guarding at those heights of 15 to 28,000 feet since 1993. And 2, India has once again shown that it does not have the political will for fight, at a time when the threats have gone up exponentially, and all because of the government's own making. Therefore, the era of war is not over, but India's will for war does not exist. Thank you.